So here we go, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Meet the Oppo series, where I get the lowdown on Town's next opponent. And of course, it's the big one at Portman Road, the battle of the big dogs. Town versus Sheffield Wednesday. Gonna be a big crowd. I'm here with Dan from the Wednesday Week podcast, covering all things Sheffield Wednesday. Dan, it's a pleasure to have you on. It's going to be a big game on Saturday. Your thoughts?
It's a monster fixture and a monster week for Sheffield Wednesday. We've got Plymouth on one Saturday, fourth round in the FA Cup Tuesday, and then you guys on Saturday. We're knackered. Leave us alone.
Yeah, man. Just like us, we had Burnley on the midweek, and we're both out of the FA Cup. We probably just thought, you know what? We've got a massive game on Saturday. Don't worry about it. We don't need the FA Cup, although we could have had a nice little route to the quarterfinals. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But Dan, let's recap since we last played. It's been September the last time we played. 2-2 draw at Hillsborough. I think a lot of Town fans are still a little bit annoyed about that game because we were, 2-1 up, and then you guys got the equaliser, and decisions, and the atmosphere was very interesting. It's been a great run for Sheffield Wednesday since then. Unbeaten runs, top of the league. How would you recap it? Winning machines, my friend.
We're not used to this. There's always been something I've been bemoaning on my show for a long time, is that, and you guys will have the same thing, where you have these group of fans that turn up week in, week out, and we've never had those seasons where we just run away with it. Where like you see, like I want to say Wigan last season, where they were just at the top of the league all year, and then they just went. And then you have those teams in the Championship that go to the Premier League, and they're 10 points clear. We've never had those seasons, and you've just got a load of whinging Yorkshiremen just going, "Well, it's our bloody time, isn't it?" And I think this is the closest we're going to get to it at this moment in time, and an unbeaten streak. We're Yorkshiremen. We've got nothing to whinge about at the minute. We don't know what to do. We're kicking dogs and flapping at pigeons. We don't know what's happening.
Yes. Once again, the current mood with Wednesday, I'm sure, is happy daisy and everything. But remember when we played you in September, I was like, it's a bit tetchy at the moment at Sheffield Wednesday. Darren Moore, some maybe shouts for him being out. What is the current mood with him as manager and just fans in general? As you said, not much to moan about, but there was that period where I was like, what could happen there?
Darren Moore has had a baptism of fire with Sheffield Wednesday. There was the first 6 months he was in charge, couldn't find his formation, didn't know what to sit. And because we sit there, probably like Ipswich did at the time when they first went down to League One, we sit there thinking, we're too big for this league. We should just get our ducks in order. Let's go straight back up. And it took Darren Moore about 6 months to work out what his best formation was and what his first 11 was. Then we had a great run from January till the end of the season, got into the playoffs and just got beat by Sunderland. There's no scapegoat. There's no person who's at actual fault. They just beat us. Sunderland were a better team, and we thought, well, hang on a minute, here's an opportunity to do it. But because of the limp performance we did against Sunderland, and because of the time that it took for Darren Moore to settle, there was a lot of fans still not having him. And then because we weren't top of the league by the end of September, then, people are going to start whinging. And then there was we did about five games on the bounce where we drew. I mean, we've not, up until last night, we've not lost in 20 games. But there was a tweet that was resurfaced on our timelines that had the comments after we'd just drawn with Oxford back in December. And even then, even as soon as 6 weeks ago, there were still people calling for Darren Moore's head. However, I hope now we've got the top league, now we've beat Plymouth, but rather comprehensively, we did a job on them. I hope now that people are now in the Darren Moore camp. As it stands right now, I think there's still a few people don't forgive him for that, for those draws, not beating Sunderland and not knowing what his best 11 was. However, his recruitment has been absolutely A1. So there's a lot of people going, move him upstairs, and he could go do outsiders for us and then get a better coaching. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question as well. It was like the January transfer window. It was busy for Town. We signed some, good players. We'll mention George Hirst in a bit. But it was very quiet for you guys, I felt. Mark McGuinness got returned to Cardiff. Alex Mighton went back to Forest. And it was just Aidan Flint who came in on loan from Stoke, an experienced defender. So were you a bit worried that there wasn't more players in, or do you think you've got a good enough squad to get you through for the rest of the season?
There was an element of, we've got a decent squad. We're okay. We've got depth in every position, which is unique to have. You guys have got it. I don't believe Plymouth have. I don't believe Derby County have. I don't even believe Barnsley have. And if you look at the top 7-8 teams, I think there's us and yourselves that have got a good old amount of depth in these positions. And the window that you talked about that you guys have had, not too shabby. With us, we lost McGuinness to go back to Cardiff, which was a huge blow. McGuinness for us was outstanding. He was one of our standout players, came out of absolutely nowhere, came in with no fanfare whatsoever, and then all of a sudden now we're all crying in our Yorkshire tea. I can't believe he's gone. Now, in terms of who we replaced him with, a friend of mine's a Bristol City fan, and he said to me, "Do you want to come to the Bristol Derby?" They'd drawn him in the cup, going back a good number of years. And there was this huge Adonis of a man that I played centre back myself, when I used to play, and this guy was right up my street. He just shouted his own name and returned it back with his head. That's what he did. And then as time went on, do you remember the Bristol City celebration gifs on the internet? It is were the best ones. And then at Cardiff, there was a point where they came to Hillsborough, and there was a bit where it was doing star jumps behind our wall, and it completely put the goalkeeper off, who now plays for Derby County, and they've absolutely stuck one in the top bins. So Aidan Flint, for me personally, I am beyond happy about, because we had him before. He played a couple of games and then he got injured and went back. And I was devastated about it. And to get him back, I'm really excited. And the game he played against Plymouth, albeit quite surprising he got picked, he was outstanding. He was outstanding. A lot of people were posting the gif from, do you remember the Wii, where you used to have to stand there pretending to head the ball? Yeah, that was Aidan Flint against Plymouth on Saturday.
Yeah, I've always liked him as well, because for Bristol City one season he scored double figures, scoring loads of goals. Yeah. Which is, you like that in a defender. But, I'm going to bring up the last 11 against Plymouth. Do you reckon there'll be many changes? There was a lot of changes, of course, midweek against Fleetwood. But do you reckon this will be the team that will face Town? Some big names in there. Barry Bannon, he's a player like Town fans we look out for. Byers as well, Josh Windass, Michael Smith up top. Yeah, talk about it.
I think the front five there, Windass, Smith, up front, one supports the other. Smith was the one that got the next to last minute goal, didn't he? The last time we played. Windass will play off him. The midfield three. This is where Sheffield Wednesday is succeeding. So Barry Bannon. Yeah, I don't need to tell anybody who follows League One football about Barry Bannon. Will Volks has came in, and we had a point where Bannon got injured, and Volks came in, and he wasn't match fit, and all of a sudden there was this point where he had to pick himself up by the scruff of the neck, and we have to genuinely consider life without Barry Bannon, because he's a cheat code in this league, right? So, and he absolutely came into his own, and then George Byers came out of absolutely nowhere, and for lack of a better term, he's replaced the hole that Massimo Luongo did for Bannon last season so very well. So those three in the middle of the park are our key players. They're the keyest of all the players. One unknown hero that's on that list there is Liam Palmer. Broke into the Scotland squad 2 years ago when we were in the Championship, before we played that last game against Derby, and went down. And he went down, and as a result of that, Steve Clarke dropped him from the Scotland squad that played in the European Championships, and during the summer just gone, he's a much maligned Marmite player for a lot of our fans, but the last couple of seasons he's worked on his fitness and he's become a very, very steady player. And we used to talk about him being a solid 6 every game. Now he's a solid 7.5. So he's going to be somebody to watch out for. The goalkeeper for me, and I'm not saying this because he wrote a poor review about my Sheffield Wednesday podcast on Apple iTunes. He did as well. Cameron Dawson went on loan to Exeter last season. He came back. He was going to be the second string goalkeeper, and he's managed to take the shirt off David Stockdale, another established League One player who didn't really put a foot wrong, but he's come back and he's actually very good, much to my chagrin, if I'm honest. Yes. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be the team that's going to come out. But yeah, the midfield three are going to be the key in that game.
Yeah, as you said, everyone knows Barry Bannon, and there was always that question mark because he's missed a few games in January because of injuries and stuff, and like some people were all rubbing their hands together. Oh, they won't have Barry Bannon. Some people go, Sheffield Wednesday, is that the only player that makes them tick? But I go, no. They've got some good players, and there's players to look out for indeed. And let's talk then, Dan, about the game as a whole. What sort of game are you expecting for this one? Two very good sides taking on each other. Sheffield Wednesday coming down with their players. Both teams, well, Town need to win this game. It is a must-win game. But what game are you expecting?
If you'd have asked me this 2 months ago, 6 months ago, I'd have said it's going to be a lot tighter than I feel it has the potential to be this weekend. Now, with it being a relatively top of the table clash, you guys have had a bit of a drop in form. And if we'd have played you 4 or 5 weeks ago, it'd have been a horrible game that I wouldn't have fancied. However, having said that, we beat Plymouth on Saturday, and it wasn't a convincing win. At no point did I didn't think we looked like conceding, but we could have easily done so. If it's football. If we all knew how football was going to pan out, we'd be millionaires every week, right? But I just felt that we've played better than that against other teams than what we did against Plymouth. So that there are some holes there. And then there's also the point that you're going to have George Hirst and Massimo Luongo probably wanting to stick one up us at some point as well. Yeah. So that's that. And bear in mind, Mass knows how Barry Bannon plays and knows how he ticks. Yeah. He's going to follow him around all day, right?
Yeah. Do you think so? And I was going to ask you about George Hirst because, we all know that connection with his dad being a Sheffield Wednesday legend. How he left the club was very interesting. And, he's come here. He's, still very getting up to speed. He scored his first goal somewhat on Tuesday. He's claiming it because you're going to claim it as a striker. But what's your thoughts on George Hirst going into this game? He's the big talking point because he's the big talking point when former players take on their former club. Yeah, he's going to be, I'm sure, a talking point for Sheffield Wednesday fans, I'm sure.
Let me take my my emotional head off and let's try and talk about it. Football. George Hirst does have a threat. He didn't get signed by teams like Blackburn. He didn't get just on a whim. Leicester City wanted to pay us £1 million for him and then snuck him out the back door a season later to their feeder club. But we're not bitter about it at all. But there's an element of George Hirst at the last game of last season scored against us. 7 minutes in, he was everywhere. He chased every ball down. He wants to stick it up at our backside more than any other player I can name in the world right now. More than probably Billy Sharp for Sheffield United. You know what I mean? And if Ipswich start with him, I'll tell you now, if you put a spread bet on him to score in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, he's going to be well up for this game. I'm sure Town fans are going to be well up for this game. Sheffield Wednesday fans are going to be up for this one as well, Dan. What's your predictions then, my friend? What are you going for? Sheffield Wednesday going to make it a big win to make the gap even further?
If we won, I think it's going to be very tight. I think it's going to be 1-0. But I think, again, head ruling heart, I think I'm going to have to get splinters on my arse and say it's going to be a 1-1 draw. And if I came away with splinters on my arse, I wouldn't be unhappy about it, if I'm honest.
No, I'm just excited. I think this is what we look for. As fans, these big games. League One it's been an interesting league. I'm sure since you've been back down here, some results and some teams you've had to play. And that's not being big-headed. It's just one of those things. But Dan, these are the games you look forward to when we play Sheffield Wednesday and the likes of Derby and co. I'm looking forward to this, Dan. But any other business? Anything else you want to mention? Any other nuggets from Town fans to know about Sheffield Wednesday?
Well, not so much about Sheffield Wednesday. I just wanted to say hello to my friend Ed, who is the son of one of your legends, Terry. Ed Butcher. Hope you're listening. Hope you're doing well. Hope everything's all right. Say hello to your dad for me.
Love that. God, love that connection right there. Brilliant, Dan. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching another edition of Meet the Oppo. Bring it on this weekend. If you go into the game, enjoy it. If you're not, follow the game with us. And bye for now.